I don't know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 67 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. It is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you all so very much for joining us this week. I'm going to be 1,000% honest and forthright with all of you. I did not think this was going to be a show that I was going to be doing right now as we speak on this day in late January. I thought this was going to be a show that I'd be doing in a couple of weeks after a Super Bowl 55 victory. But instead, it's a show that I am doing after an NFC Championship loss, the fourth in 7 years. Ouch. That hurts to think about. It's even worse to say out loud. 4 NFC Championship game losses for the Green Bay Packers in the last 7 years. That's and all in brutal fashion. All in brutal fashion. This is the 2020 Green Bay Packers season wrap. Like I said, it's just a bit. I don't want to say somber, but it is definitely a little bit disappointing. I didn't think I'd be doing this show right now. I thought we'd be, doing a normal show where we're gushing over an NFC Championship victory and talking about how hard fought the game was. And before I even go any further, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We knew they were going to be a tough matchup. They were a tough matchup back in week 6. You knew you were going to have to deal with some really fast linebackers, a really good defense, and an offense that continued to grow throughout the season with Tom Brady at the helm, getting linked up with Bruce Arians and getting on the same page, and him having his essentially almost his full complement of weapons. They didn't have Antonio Brown in that game, but it didn't matter. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, and a guy named Scotty Miller showed up big time before the half. So you have a full complement of weapons, and you got a guy who has 6 rings on his fingers. You know it's going to be tough. It was. They came out, man. It was a really, really hard-fought game, so congratulations to them. But it's still very, very disappointing to be sitting here with all of you right now doing the Packers season wrap. Let's just get to it, man. You got to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go through the season recap first, because we want to talk about who the Green Bay Packers were. And I say were because the season's over, and it will most likely be a different team next season. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Who were the Green Bay Packers? Let's talk about them offensively. We know last season, Matt LaFleur, a bright, young, offensive-minded head coach, coming off of that Kyle Shanahan coaching tree or that Sean McVay coaching tree, whichever coaching tree you want to say, they were all together. I think most people are going to give McVay credit for LaFleur and put him on his coaching tree, but, he kind of has a lot of Shanahan's system in him. But a young, bright offensive mind, he comes over. He gets to work with a certified first ballot Hall of Famer, a 2-time MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion, and Aaron Rodgers at the helm, a guy who most people thought was just absolutely done. Wasn't quite accurate, didn't have the kinds of seasons that, and he said it himself, and it's something I'd been saying for years. His off years are career years for other quarterbacks. So you kind of chuckle at it like, man, yeah, he had a down year, and I'm using the air quotes here. I wish y'all could see me right now, but I'm using the air quotes when I say that. But everybody's like, oh, man, he's getting close to being done, and why sink that much money into him and whatever. You don't have the wide receivers to be dangerous. How are you going to use Aaron Jones and those bevy of running backs that you already have at your disposal? Mike McCarthy couldn't do it. Joe Philbin couldn't do it. What are you going to do? You're a rookie head coach. You're young. He comes in, and offensively last season, they really had to scrape by for points. But you could kind of see, like, okay, at times, yeah, they scrape by for points, and at other times it's coming a little bit more fluidly. Give them another year in the system, and man, it is going to be lights out. And that is exactly what it was this season. Now, mind you, even when they were scraping by for points last season, they won 13 games. Now, a lot of people, a lot of ill-informed people, a lot of uninformed people, a lot of idiotic people, let's just call it what it is. We keep it truthful, opinionated, and passionate here on Toss. A lot of idiotic people are sitting out there saying they were the worst 13-3 team ever. They got by on luck. They had the referees in their pockets. Stop it. They were a damn good team in 2019. You don't win 13 games by accident. You don't win 13 games on a fluke. You have to do the right things in order to get 13 wins in the National Football League. The Packers did that. Their defense was really what held them together in a lot of those victories. But that offense, you could kind of see the potential that they had in this season, the 2020 season. They realized that potential. What I said last season in 2019 came to fruition in 2020. You give them another year in this offense, that continuity, guys stepping up, the next year in the same system, it's going to be lights out. And that's exactly what they were, over 30 points per game. Number one offense in the NFL. Let's run down some of these offensive numbers. Aaron Rodgers, 4,299 yards passing, 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That is ridiculous. I don't think people realize how ridiculous that touchdown to interception ratio is. You're talking nearly 10-1 touchdowns to interceptions. When you do not turn the football over, you are going to win a lot of games. And that was one thing the Packers were really good at doing this season, was not giving the ball away. Now, in the NFC Championship game, that was a different story, although the Buccaneers gave it away a lot more than the Packers did, but I digress. Completing over 70% of his passes. A 121.5 passer rating, second in franchise history to only Aaron Rodgers, his own, 122. Simply remarkable. He's going to win his third NFL MVP. I don't care what anybody says. He is the clear-cut MVP. That's it. End of story. You wish he was going to the Super Bowl so you get another Super Bowl MVP, but that was not to be this season. Devontae Adams having a record-breaking season himself. 115 receptions. That's a team record. 1,374 yards, 18 touchdowns, and oh, by the way, he missed multiple games. Averaged 98 yards per game receiving. And he missed multiple games. Did not play a full 16 games. Could you imagine the production he would have had in those games that he missed? My goodness. Just remarkable. The connection between he and Aaron Rodgers is second to none in the league right now. Aaron Jones, 1,104 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. Came down on the touchdowns a bit from the previous season, but that came to be expected. But still, 9 touchdowns on the ground, that's nothing to scoff at. Receiving, 47 receptions, 355 yards, and another 2 touchdowns. So another double-digit touchdown season. Over 1,400 yards of total offense from him. And, oh, by the way, he missed games. Jamal Williams, solid season all the way around. 505 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, another 236 receiving on 31 receptions, and another touchdown. Very solid season from him. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, 33 receptions, 609 yards, 6 touchdowns. He averaged 20.9 yards per reception. He is a big play receiver. Now, I know we're all going to think about the catches that he had. He had some big ones, including an NFC Championship game. But we're all going to remember the drops that he had. But you know another guy who also used to drop the football early in his career? Davante Adams. And Davante Adams was a guy who was touted for his hands coming out of Fresno State. People, you have to be patient with young guys. MVS has talent. He has the speed to get away from guys. You could see that he's working on his feet, being around Davante Adams, working with Davante Adams, learning from him how to get separation with your feet and not your hands. That is a special, special skill. And it will set you apart from many other players in this league if you can do that on a consistent basis. And you can see his growth. So as maddening as the drops are, his talent and his production, I don't want to say it outweighs it, because you don't want guys who are going to drop the football in critical moments. And he's had some critical drops. But you can see the talent. You can see that, okay, he's going to figure this out. He's not going to have those drops. He's going to be that big play receiver. Allen Lazard. Oh, yeah, Allen Lazard. Another guy who missed games but had a solid season, 33 catches, 451 yards, 3 touchdowns again. He missed multiple games. He had core muscle surgery. Missed multiple games and still came back and had a solid season. Very good in blocking. He's developing into a really good blocking wide receiver, but he's still a very solid wide receiver, a solid number 3 option. And Robert Tonyan, Bobby, Big Bob Tonyan, whatever you want to call him. I remember a game on Thursday night, and it was against Seattle. It was in Seattle. They had all the color rush uniforms and all that, and the Packers were all clean and all white. The play that sticks out for me in that game was just an absolutely ridiculous throw by Aaron Rodgers on the move. Drops the dime to Tonyan, who makes a hell of a catch for a touchdown. That opened my eyes to Tonyan. Now, the next season, he really didn't do much. Up and down, had some injuries to deal with. And then this year, it seems that he just put it all together. Should have been a Pro Bowler. That is an absolute snub. Now, you see some guys that say, oh, snub. And it's a guy who had really comparable stats to them. So it's like, yeah, you were good, but they were good too. So it's kind of a coin flip, so I can understand your gripe. But really? I mean, do you really have an argument? There was no argument. He should have been there over Evan Ingram. There was no question about it. 52 catches, 586 yards, 11 touchdown receptions. 11. You found your big play tight end. And remember what I've been saying on this program for the 5 going on 6 years we've been on the air. When this offense has a dynamic tight end, it is far better than when it doesn't. And you can see just how dynamic this offense was. Matt LaFleur using the pre-snap motion and the jet sweep motion and some remnants of RPO, run pass option. Giving the defenses a lot to think about and not really quite being able to put your finger on what they're trying to do. Then you have a Hall of Famer who's pulling the trigger for you, who can manipulate a defense, who can read a defense, knows what you're doing, can get into the proper play, has gained the most confidence in the world in this offense, has completely bought in. And it was a well-oiled machine. This was an otherworldly offense. It was otherworldly. It was beautiful offense to watch. Now, like I said, they ran into some tough games where it was a bit of a struggle. I mean, that Tampa Bay game definitely sticks out in week 6. Struggled a bit against the Vikings, but both of those games are losses. But you're going to have that. You're going to have that at times. But for the most part this season, they were an automatic 30. If not 30, they were damn close to it. It was beautiful offense to watch. They were so good offensively. This was a special team offensively. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Because they definitely held their own, finishing number 9 overall in total defense. The Packers had a top 10 defense. Believe it or not, top 10 defense. Jair Alexander, 51 tackles, 1 sack, 1 pick. He is a lockdown receiver. There is no question about it. If you're still questioning that, I have to question whether or not you know football or not. I have to question whether or not you actually watch the games. Much less if you have any football knowledge or not. This guy is absolutely locked down. They stop trying him. And when they do, you end up with horrendous stats, even in the NFC Championship game. Actually, in the playoffs, he allowed a 0.0 passer rating. A 0.0 passer rating. I don't know if y'all know this, but there's no number better than 0. There's you can't do better than 0 in that regard. He is absolutely locked down to the point where they stop trying him. So whoever he's guarding, that side of the field, you can't do anything. If you go to the NFC Championship game, you notice that they were not trying Jair Alexander. Whatever side of the field he was on, they were trying their best not to throw to that side. And when they did, bad things happened. That's where Adrian Amos got his pick. They threw to where Jair Alexander was. Alexander had them locked up, played the defender perfectly, forced them to the sideline, and now you have the safety help right there. He darts in, gets the pick. Bad things happen when you try Jair. Quarterbacks know this, teams know this, and they stop trying them. And when they do, like I said, bad things happen for opposing offenses when they try to throw Jair's way. He's locked down, period. He's got that half of the field cut off. Doesn't matter who's over there. He's locked down the best of the best. He can talk it because he walks it. Speaking of Adrian Amos, he had, and I don't know if anybody really knows this, but he had quietly a really good season. Now, I've been impressed. When he was picked up from the Bears, I was excited because you go back and you watch the tape on him. You put him in the right system. I mean, the Bears system was good, but I just thought that he had something more to give. And he did. 83 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 picks. Solid play all the way around. Really, really solid play all the way around. Chris Barnes, the rookie, 80 tackles, 1 sack. He played some solid football this year. Yeah, you talk about right off the top, he played some really solid football, not a willing tackler. Really smart. Calling signals for the defense. I mean, that's huge. Rashawn Gary, a guy who people were already, and I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying all of you out there who are listening to Toss right now gave up on Rashawn Gary. But there was a healthy amount of Packers Twitter, I will say, who would just ragtag this pick. Just, oh, he's a bust. Dude. Or dudette. He's in year 2. He sat behind Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, who were one of the best sack combos in the league last year. Soaking in all that knowledge. He got a few snaps. But you should consider it a luxury to have a guy with that much talent able to sit back and learn from 2 other guys who have that much talent and produce that much. And you could tell that this season he soaked in some of that knowledge. He continues to soak in that knowledge, especially from Zadarius. Preston had his struggles this year. When you talk about 35 tackles but 5 sacks. The thing that really impresses me is, if you notice, he was really trying to try all of these moves that guys with a little bit more speed, a little bit more swivel in the hips were able to do, trying to bend around the corner and trying all these other moves. And then he realized, like, that's not me. That's not what I do best. Then you saw him taking on more of the straight line blitzes. Speed rushing, bull rushing. Things that make him go straight to the quarterback. When he started doing that, that really started helping this defense, and that really started helping his production, which in turn starts helping his confidence. I mean, those 5 sacks are a warning shot. I think this kid is going to take it up a notch in year 3. He may hit double-digit sacks and the thing is, especially after this NFC Championship game, you may end up with a new defensive coordinator. Who knows? A lot to be figured out, but we'll get to that later. Christian Kirksey. Picked him up. Solid season, 77 tackles, 2 picks, 2 sacks. Packers really have some really good, solid linebackers now, and they really played well this year. Really played well this year. Now, some people are out there are going to wish that they had the speed of the Buccaneers linebackers and David and those guys, but not everybody's going to be blessed to have that. Or even just a few years ago with the Falcons linebackers and their speed, which again gave the Packers fits. You're not always going to be able to get that. But you got some really good, smart, solid linebackers in there. They definitely didn't hurt you. You finished 13th against the run. Vast improvement over where it was. You finished as a top 10 defense, so you're going in the right direction. And the aforementioned Zadarius Smith, another solid season. 52 tackles, 12.5 sacks, another double-digit sack season. An outright Pro Bowl. Well-deserved. This was a talented defense that really came together. Because what did everybody talk about with this defense coming in? We knew the passing defense could be good. We knew that the linebackers and guys like Zadarius and Preston and Kenny Clark, those guys could get to the quarterback. Or at least Kenny Clark, sucks in, a lot of the attention and the tackles, getting double or triple teamed. Sometimes still finding his way to get to the quarterback. Still stuffing the run. But this was a talented defense that took a step forward underneath Mike Pettin. Now, he's embattled at this point because of some of the play calls that he's made, not just in the NFC Championship game, but overall in the season. And I said this on Twitter at the 20double about how Matt LaFleur would make comments about what he would like to see the defense do, in his post-game presser. Now, one time I can remember him talking about, well, I would like to see, our corners come up and press as opposed to giving a cushion and, us giving up third downs. Now, everybody makes a big deal, about it, like, oh, he's trying to tell Mike Pettin how to do his job. Yeah. Because he's the head coach. He's responsible for the team as a whole. That means players and coaches. He has to be that quality control. And if he sees something that he doesn't like, whether it's something that he deals with on a weekly basis or not, like we know, he's an offensive head coach. He calls the offensive plays. He teams up with Nathaniel Hackett, who is the offensive coordinator, and he gets a few play calls in here and there. But for the most part, he's offensive coordinator in name only. It's really LaFleur pulling the strings. But just because he's putting together the offensive plan and he's, installing all the offensive game plans does not mean that he's not paying attention to all other areas. That is what a head coach has to do. So if he sees something that he doesn't like on defense, well, this is his team. He is the head coach. He's allowed to say something. He's allowed to make sure that a change is made in order for this team to get better. And you can see that Pettin did take it, personally. And you can see some of those changes did happen. But then, Mike Pettin is Mike Pettin. And there was a time where all of his defenses as a coordinator that he's coached finished top 10. Packers did not finish top 10 defensively last season. They did in 2020. So he kind of got right back into that mode of, hey, look how many top 10 defenses we've been able to put together. But this was a talented defense that came together. And you love to see it because that was the biggest question coming into the season. Can they stop the run? You knew the Packers were going to be able to stop the pass. You knew the Packers were going to be able to get after the quarterback. But could they stop the run was the biggest question. And they did and you could see it throughout the season. You saw that not just the offense, but you saw the defense grow. You saw them come together. You saw them get better week after week after week. Were they always perfect? No. Matter of fact, they were never perfect. But they consistently got better. And that is what you're looking for. Are we getting better? And they did get better. And they won a lot of ball games. Another 13-3 season. Another division championship. Another first-round bye. This time, home field advantage. The only bye in the NFC. And another NFC championship game appearance. So let's get to that game. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Because everybody has their point of where the game turned. Everybody has their point of, if we would have done this or if we would have done that. And I wrote about it on the Toss blog on tossnationmedia.com. For me, there were three things that stood out as terrible decisions. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to say terrible decisions. I would say one was a terrible decision. That was a terrible play call. I'll say two were questionable decisions that they have to live with the pain of from here on out. But let's get into a little bit of a game recap. So the first quarter was very quiet for the Green Bay Packers. You knew that this defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was going to be tough because you faced them before, and they, too, like your defense, have only gotten better. So you knew it was going to be difficult. The speed of those linebackers is serious. And they got Vita Vea back. So he's stuffing the run. Neither team ran the ball very well, but the Packers in particular did not. I believe they had 69 yards rushing. I believe Tampa had like 76 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown on some really shoddy, horrible, bad tackling by the Packers. We'll get to that in a second. Packers did not score in the first quarter. You're not accustomed to seeing that. They usually take their first possession to score. Didn't happen in this game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did score. And this is, remember when I said earlier that they were not trying to test Jair Alexander. Jair Alexander typically does not travel. Typically does not travel. He stays on one side of the field. So they moved Mike Evans. And who's on him? Kevin King, who was absolutely burnt toast all game long. I mean, you talk about a time to come up with the worst game of your career. It was that one. Brady drops a dime to Mike Evans. Better press coverage prevents that from happening. It was on Kevin King. Or was it on Sullivan? No, excuse me. That was on. We're talking about how bad Kevin King was, but we'll get to that in a second. It was actually on Chandon Sullivan, who started off the game rough, but he got a little bit better as the game went in. But Sullivan didn't have exactly the best start. Now let's talk about Kevin King, because you talk about that 15-yard touchdown pass from Tom Brady to Mike Evans. King completely mistimed his jump. And it's not exactly like it was Tom Brady was out there throwing a laser on that particular pass. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's got a cannon, but it's not like he was throwing lasers. You had time to get that jump perfectly timed and right and knock it away. But he didn't. Ends up being 7-0 at the end of the first quarter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You go into the second quarter. Packers have, at this point, they've got to get something. It's the second quarter. You've been left off the board. Now you're starting to drive. And then Rodgers looking around at the defense. Sees his one-on-one matchup. It's MVS. Speed guy, big play guy, one-on-one, no safety help on top. This is going to be a breeze, and guess what it was? 50 yards to the house. You tie the ball game at 7 apiece. A 7-play drive for 90 yards that took only 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Packers are back in it. Now you're scoring that easily, or that quickly, I should say. Packers are back in it. Now, remember when I said that one rushing touchdown? That belonged to Leonard Fournette, and it happened because of some really shoddy tackling or attempted tackling by the Green Bay Packers. That should not have been a touchdown. As a matter of fact, it should have been a loss on that play. Now you're down 14-7. You're talking about a 4-play, 73-yard drive that took 1 minute and 43 seconds for the Buccaneers. That ain't what you want. But now the Packers get the ball back. All right, now we got to go and tie this game. Okay, we can't let this get away like we did in week 6. And you drive all the way down the field. And you miss connection after connection after connection. And you have to settle for a field goal after a 15-play, 69-yard drive. 7 minutes, 25 seconds off the clock. I mean, it's the type of drive you want. You mixed in run with pass. I mean, you really weren't very effective running the football with those linebackers and that line, especially with Vita Vea being back in the middle. It was some tough sledding. But you mixed up the run and the pass. You started really going up tempo, which is what I said on Twitter. Hey, they need to press tempo. They really need to keep it up tempo. Quick passes, negate that speed. of those linebackers. Don't give them a chance to use that speed to come after your quarterback. But you do all that work for 15 plays at 69 yards to settle for 3. Now it's 14-10. And this is a critical juncture in the game because now you're getting close to the half. And just a weird sequence of plays. And at first it looked like the Packers had forced the Buccaneers to punt, but Bruce Arians calls a timeout. Decides, you know what? Let's go for it. We're in the, we're in the middle of the field. Let's go for it. Brings Brady and the offense back onto the field. I'm like, oh no. You just get that sick feeling in your stomach. Let me tell y'all something. Like, and I know y'all listening worldwide. We got India, we got Ireland, we got China. We got Africa in the house. We got Canada in the house. We y'all are listening from toss from everywhere. So let me tell you about it. And all of you may not be Green Bay Packers fans. But we're here at Toss. We're in it deep with the Green Bay Packers. So let me tell you about the dichotomy of sitting there and being a part of Packers lore. You've been to multiple championship games. And you had some really gut-wrenching things happen to you in those prior championship games. You just get that feeling in the pit of your stomach like, okay, it's 4th down. They're bringing the offense back out. What now? You're thinking, you're hoping for the best. You're preparing to be the best and for the best, but you're also at the same time preparing for the worst. You're hoping for the best, but you're preparing for the worst. Because it has just been the Packers' luck as of late in the NFC Championship game that something weird happens that begins that gut-wrenching loss that you've endured for year after year in the NFC title game. And that happened. Here's questionable decision number 1, or I should just say flat-out bad decision. And going back and looking at the game, I think it was cover 1 that was called. Mike Pettin decides to call cover 1. I thought originally it was cover 3, and I'm still on the fence about it. Cover 3 or cover 1. Either way, Kevin King, who has just been in one of the toughest games of his career, playing inside technique, meaning inside the numbers. He's got no help over the top, no safety help whatsoever. Instead of calling prevent to keep them out of the end zone, you call cover 1 or cover 3. Inside technique. Brady sees this, throws it up to a guy by the name of Scotty Miller for a 39-yard touchdown that had Kevin King scampering to try and catch him and look like an absolute fool doing so. Before that drive started, after the Packers kicked that field goal, I said out loud, they cannot afford to go down 21-10 at the half. If they go down 21-10 at the half, I think this game might be over. Those were my exact words that came out of my mouth. If they go down 21-10, this game is over. And it wasn't because I didn't think, that the onslaught was on. The way the game script was happening, and if they would have scored in that situation, 4th down, with literally seconds remaining on the clock. It's about 25, 30 seconds left on the clock. They're not coming back from that. That is like an emotional blow. And the way the game is shaping up, the way this defense is getting after Rodgers, and you're not able to run the football effectively, it's over if they go 21-10. So it's 21-10 at the half. You come back in the second half and Packers get the ball first. Aaron Jones gets hit. A solid hit on the football. He fumbles. Now he's out with a chest injury. Buccaneers scoop the football up and advance it downfield. Sets them up with a short field, which they've been really having really good field position all game because special teams, which is really a big weakness on this team, the Green Bay Packers, could not do their job and make them drive a long field. Tom Brady tosses it over to Cameron Brate for an 8-yard touchdown pass. You're talking about one play, 4 seconds to score. I mean, now it's 28-10. At this point, people are drinking heavily, and they're thinking it's really over. Like the Packers are once again about to get blown out in an NFC Championship game, but not so fast. Because Cameron Brate ain't the only tight end that can score. Packers go on their own drive, 8 plays, 75 yards, which ends with a Robert Tonyan touchdown catch. It's now 28-17. Okay, the Packers still have a pulse. This may not be a blowout, y'all. Packers' defense does a really good job. Buccaneers defense continues to do a good job. They're trading, not quite 3 and outs, but they're trading defensive stops, and Packers get the ball back, and oh man, they score again. Going a long drive, 13 plays, 68 yards, ate up almost, it's about 7.5 minutes worth of clock. 2-yard pass to Devontae Adams, touchdown. Oh, man, y'all. Oh, man, they're back in it. It's 28-23. And to make it just a one-possession game with a field goal that could tie it for you, as opposed to needing a touchdown to take a lead, Matt LaFleur decides, let's go for 2. Okay. If you go for 2, you better make it. Those were my exact words. Packers really haven't had a lot of success on 2-point conversions this season, but they really didn't need to go for it because Mason Crosby was solid all season, 16 for 16 on field goals, and I believe it was like 59 to 63 on extra points. Just about as automatic as you can get. Packers had a good play. Rodgers rolls out, has Equanimeous St. Brown, hits him right in the numbers, and Equanimeous drops it. Absolutely drops it. So now you go into the fourth quarter, and the Packers and the Buccaneers, they continue to trade defensive stops. Packers picking off Brady 3 times. Buccaneers packed off Rodgers once on a hold. There was a lot of that going on in this game on both sides. But you're trading defensive stops, and now Buccaneers are driving down the field a little bit. 8-play drive. You cannot let them score a touchdown here if you have designs on trying to tie this game up somehow. You can live with a field goal. You wouldn't like it, but you can live with it because that gives you a chance to go and tie this ball game up. Packers hold the Buccaneers to a field goal. It's now 31-23. Packers get the ball back. Hey, now you got to go and answer. You got to go and do something. Clock is not exactly your friend. You need to try to get one more possession out of this game after this one. You don't want to put Tom Brady in a position of where he needs a field goal to send his team to the Super Bowl. We've seen that story way too many times. Packers start marching down the field, and they march down the field, and then they get down into the gold zone. It's the red zone for all the rest of you, but it's the gold zone for the Green Bay Packers, an area that they have absolutely been stellar in all season. Now, in the divisional round, the Rams, the number one defense in the NFL, did a really good job against them. They really couldn't do much in the gold zone. The Buccaneers, just like in the divisional round, the Rams did to the Packers. They did what the Rams did to the Packers and really did a good job on them in the gold zone. They get down there, and for whatever reason, Rodgers is absolutely locked on Davante Adams. He's hell-bent on getting this ball to Davante Adams in the gold zone. Now, I get it. He is a guy you've had a connection with all season. He has proven to be the guy with the most reliable hands on this team. But in that instance, you need to go and see who else is open. He throws the football to Davante Adams, misses back shoulder throw. That was the throw. That was the one that was going to tie the ball game or potentially tie the ball game. You needed a 2-point conversion. You were down 8. But that was the one that was going to put 6 on the board for you. You missed it. Then you miss high in the back of the end zone to Davante Adams. Even though you had a wide open Allen Lazard who could have walked into the end zone if you would have passed it to him. But you stayed locked on Davante Adams. Then on third down, again, locked on Adams, 2 defenders on him. And this is 3rd and goal. Now, this is the first questionable decision. You throw it to Davante Adams. He had 2 defenders on him. Not even close to making that reception. They're lucky it didn't get picked. But there was a large space with no defenders in it that Aaron Rodgers had a wide open lane to run into. Now, Jason Pierre-Paul, who does have some speed, probably could have caught him. I think he had the angle to be able to catch him. Rodgers could have raced him to the corner. Now, I'm not saying that Rodgers would have scored had he run. But I know for damn sure that had he run, he would have made the very next play, which would have been 4th and goal, much shorter. Now, I think he made that decision, and he mentioned this in the post-game press conference, that had he known that they were going to kick the field goal on 4th down, he would have done something different. He would have done something different. And conventional wisdom would tell you that, yeah, it's the 4th quarter. It's nearing just over 2 minutes in the 4th quarter of a championship game. You're in the red zone or the gold zone. It's 4th and goal. Go for this. If you miss it, you make Tampa Bay drive a long field, and you have a much better chance of stopping them and having enough time to go down and potentially tie this ball game. But instead, inexplicably, and this is the second questionable decision, Matt LaFleur decides that we're going to kick a field goal. We're going to kick a field goal, and we're going to count on getting the ball back from Tom Brady with just over 2 minutes remaining. And you didn't get the ball back. Now, people will believe that it was a questionable pass interference call on Kevin King that cost the Packers this game. I disagree. Number one, it wasn't questionable pass interference. It was pass interference. On that same play, Tristain Wirfs was guilty of holding. And it wasn't one of those ticky-tack holding calls. It was blatant holding. Refs didn't call that one. They called the PI on Kevin King. The final nail in the coffin of his worst game of his career. That one game makes you question whether or not he's going to be back in Green Bay, but that's another question for another day. My issue with that call is the fact that you have let these guys play all game long and have not called a hold on either team all game long, but you call it in that instance. It's not the first blatant hold call that happened all game. There have been blatant hold calls all game long on both teams. But that's not what cost them the game. What cost them the game were the decisions on 3rd and goal by Rodgers not running that football and not finding a different receiver to throw to other than Allen Lazard. But for me, I felt that if he didn't have anybody to throw it to, if the coverage was that good and you didn't feel good with your matchups on anybody else, run the football and make it a shorter 4th and goal. And Matt LaFleur's decision to kick the field goal on that one. There's some people out there who are going to say, oh, well, we're criticizing it and questioning it because it didn't work. No, it was just a bad decision. I'm sorry, a questionable decision. I'm not trusting, as good as my defense has been, I'm not trusting my defense to go and get a ball from a guy that has 6 rings. Even though they picked him off 3 times, that is not a situation where they're going to really try and pass it a lot. They're trying to run that clock out. They're going to pass in 3rd down situations, which is where that PI came. I'm not trusting my defense to go and get the ball back. I am trusting my best player in Aaron Rodgers with the football in his hands on 4th and goal. I am trusting him. I am trusting my first ballot Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning, Super Bowl MVP winning, 2-time MVP winning, going to be 3-time MVP winning quarterback to go and either potentially tie this ball game or have Tampa make them drive a long field and giving your defense a chance to give you that ball back for one last crack at it. That's what should have happened. But instead, PI effectively ends the game. Packers have no more timeouts. They have no way to stop the clock. Tampa Bay wins the ball game, 31-26. And you're left with the pain of questionable decisions. This was a great team. This wasn't just a good team. This was a great team. Offensively, defensively, this was a great team. And now you're always going to be left with those questions of what if. Now you're going to be left with those wounds of questionable decisions. Now it's the offseason, and you got some decisions to make. You got a lot of free agents on this team that have major impact on what you do. Guys like Aaron Jones, guys like Corey Linsley. You got to pay those guys. And those are just a couple of names off the top of my head. You got to pay those guys, and you're not going to be able to pay all of them. You got questions from people regarding Aaron Rodgers' comments after the game, and even though he was on the Pat McAfee show today and said, I see no reason why I won't be back. You got a lot of questions going into this offseason. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is one of them. I think he'll be back. He pretty much said as much. I believe him. This one is going to hurt for a long time because it was, I think in the Seattle game, you were playing with house money. I think in the Atlanta championship game, you were playing with house money. Nobody expected you to be there. I think in the San Francisco game, you were also playing, even though you were a good 13-3, you were a good team, but your Achilles heel was a run game, and you were going up against a team who ran the football better than anyone else in the National Football League that year. So I think you were also playing with house money in that game, but in this one, in 2020, the 2020 season, you were not playing with house money. You were the favorite. You were the number 1 seed. You had the home field advantage. You had the better team. You pretty much outgained and outdid everything the Buccaneers did in that game, but yet you still lost. So yeah, this one's going to sting for a while. And I could totally understand if people want to stay off of social media for a little bit or not watch the sports shows and be, ready to regurgitate every time they hear anything about the Super Bowl because it just hurts. You don't know if you'll get another crack at it next season. I don't foresee the Packers dropping off the face of the earth. I don't see them dropping down to 8 or 9 wins. This is still a really good football team. They have some questions to answer. They have some guys to pay. But this is a really good football team who I firmly believe will be back next season. A good team. Whether or not they make it this far, that remains to be seen. But you have to be proud of what the 2020 Green Bay Packers did, even though they didn't go as far as we all thought they would. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. It's episode 67 of the Tristain on Sports Show. Toss, the 2020 Packers season wrap. TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show is the Tristain on Sports Show page on Facebook. Talk about a lot of things there. Y'all know where to find me at on social media at the20double on Instagram and Twitter. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T Squared, Tristain Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.